I never thought I'd be scared of my own brother. But the night he smiled and whispered, "Meet the wolves tonight," something inside me cracked. He left me in the forest without food, without light, without a way out. I waited, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. Hours passed, no footsteps, no calls, just the sound of wind and something moving in the dark. My name is Madelyn Carter. I survived that night. But what came after was darker than the woods, because when I returned, I found out he didn't act alone. My family wanted me gone, and they almost got away with it. You never think your brother might kill you until he almost does. That thought used to terrify me. Now it just echoes, like the sound of footsteps behind you in a forest that's far too quiet. Growing up, Jake was everything I wanted to be. Brave, loud, golden. He could charm our parents into anything. A new bike, skipping school, even blaming me when things went wrong. But I didn't care. I was the quiet one, the fixer, the one who smoothed over the messes and made excuses when he disappeared for days. That's what little sisters do, right? You defend the people you love. You trust them, no matter how many cuts they leave behind. Our parents adored Jake. At family dinners, their eyes sparkled whenever he spoke. "That's our boy," Dad would say, clapping him on the back, even if Jake had just told a crude joke or insulted me under his breath. Mom would laugh like she didn't hear, or maybe she just didn't care. I told myself it didn't matter. I wasn't the favorite, but I was the backbone. I kept everyone together. 5 years passed without a real conversation between me and Jake. He left town, got into trouble, resurfaced only at funerals or holidays with a crooked smile and a new lie. Then one afternoon, completely out of the blue, he texted, "Camping trip? Just the two of us. Like old times." I stared at the screen for 10 minutes, heart pounding like he'd reached into my childhood and pulled out something fragile. I said yes. We drove upstate in his dusty pickup, windows down, music loud, like it used to be. He told stories I half believed, laughed too hard at his own jokes. I laughed too, trying to catch up with the version of him I remembered. It felt like patching a torn quilt with scraps of old memories. Somewhere along the road, I convinced myself this was a turning point. Maybe he was different now. Maybe we could be siblings again. The forest was beautiful, silent, dense. Jake parked at a clearing that didn't look official, but said he'd camped there before. No signal, no map, just trees and shadows that stretched long past the horizon. We unpacked our gear. Mine looked untouched, still wrapped in plastic. Jake said he brought it for me. I thanked him. That's what sisters do. By nightfall, the fire crackled. Jake passed me a can of beer and grinned. "Still afraid of the dark?" he asked. I smiled, but my stomach twisted. He kept watching me like he was studying something. I tried not to flinch when he said, "You always needed someone to protect you. Maybe tonight you'll learn." I woke up to silence. No fire, no Jake. My sleeping bag had been slashed open at the side, barely holding shape. My flashlight was gone, my phone dead. I sat up, heart hammering, and looked around. Nothing, just trees, a blanket of fog, cold air slicing through my skin. Then, on the stump where Jake had been sitting the night before, a folded piece of paper. "On the Meet the Wolves tonight, Mads." That's all it said. I stood there for minutes, trying to make sense of it. Was it a joke, a cruel prank? Jake had always liked scaring me when we were kids. Fake snake in my locker, locking me in the basement. But this wasn't middle school. This was wilderness, miles from help, I tried the compass in my bag. The needle spun, twitching without settling. I turned in every direction, looking for a trail. The trees pressed in, tighter than before. The air felt different, like something was holding its breath. Then I heard it, a sound, soft, deliberate footsteps. Not running, not stumbling, walking, controlled. I held my breath, my voice caught in my throat, and I forced out a whisper. "Jake?" No reply. The steps stopped. For a moment, I wondered if I was imagining it. Maybe my mind was unraveling. Maybe that's what he wanted. I backed toward a tree and crouched, heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. More steps, closer this time, crunching over dry leaves. I squeezed my eyes shut. Then silence. I waited. Nothing moved. No growl, no breath. Just silence so thick it rang in my ears. When I opened my eyes again, there was no one. But beside my foot, a fresh footprint. Too small to be Jake. Too narrow, not a wolf. Someone else had been here. The footprint disappeared by morning. I barely slept, curled beneath a pine tree with a broken branch, gripped like a weapon. Every breeze felt like breath on my neck. Every shadow looked like it moved. But I didn't die. The wolves, real or metaphorical, didn't come for me that night. Instead, I found a lens. Near where I'd tripped the night before, half buried under leaves, was a glint of something unnatural. I brushed away dirt and found it, camouflaged against bark, a small black camera nailed to a tree. It was pointed directly at the spot where Jake had left me. I stared at it, frozen. Was he filming me? Was this some sick survival experiment? Or was someone else watching, waiting to capture the moment I broke down? Or worse, didn't survive? I stood, suddenly more awake than I'd been in hours. If someone was recording, maybe someone was nearby. Or maybe they'd been watching from far away, sipping coffee while I begged the trees for answers. I didn't have time to think. A rustling behind me snapped my attention sideways. A man stepped out from the underbrush, late 30s, unshaven, wearing a brown ranger jacket with a faded badge. His hands were raised. "Easy," he said, voice calm. "I'm not here to hurt you." I didn't speak. "You're Madelyn Carter, right?" My legs almost gave out. "How do you know my name?" "I work patrol in this region, Owen Grant." He pointed toward a badge clipped to his chest. "We got flagged yesterday when a motion-triggered camera pinged an unknown presence. That camera's ours, not his." He nodded toward the lens I'd found. Owen led me out of the woods, guiding gently but firmly. I didn't ask questions. I didn't have the strength. My knees buckled the moment I saw his truck. I climbed in and shut the door. The moment it clicked shut, I broke. I hadn't cried all night. Not when I was cold, not when I was scared, not even when I found the note. But now, in the safety of a vehicle with the heater humming and a stranger beside me, I sobbed like a child. My fists clenched my coat. My shoulders shook. My breath came out in broken pieces. Owen didn't speak. He just handed me a bottle of water and waited. "You're not the first woman abandoned here," he said finally, "but you might be the first to come back." Back in town, Owen dropped me at the urgent care center and made sure I was checked in. I had no phone, no ID, nothing but the dirty clothes on my back. I told the nurse I was fine, but she didn't believe me. She called my emergency contact, my mother. The receptionist passed me the landline. "Madelyn," my mother's voice rang sweet and airy, like she'd just seen me that morning. "Where have you been, honey? We've been so worried." I hung up. 2 hours later, my parents arrived with tears and hugs and too many words. My father clutched my hand like it might vanish. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, trembling just enough to be convincing. We thought you'd wandered off again," she whispered. "We were scared. You know how you get sometimes." I stared at her. "How I get?" Dad chimed in. "You've always had episodes, Maddie. You remember after that breakup junior year? You just disappeared for 2 days. It's okay. We're just glad you're safe." I didn't respond. They hadn't filed a police report. They hadn't searched the woods. They'd told people I'd had a breakdown and left town. Convenient. I was gone. They could move on, tie up loose ends. When I returned home, my apartment key didn't work. The landlord, confused, said he'd been notified I'd relocated by my mother. In the mailbox, a statement from a life insurance policy I didn't remember signing. The beneficiary listed Ellen Carter, my mom. I went cold. My hands shook as I logged into my old laptop. It was slow, forgotten under my bed. Years ago, Jake had helped me set up a recording app for interviews, he'd said. Just in case, it auto-synced to a folder in the cloud. I found it. The audio file was dated 2 weeks ago, recorded at the house. Maybe he forgot to turn it off. Maybe he never knew it was running. Click. Jake's voice, laughing. "She's soft," he said. "She'll freeze in a night. We just need to wait." Then my mother's voice, quiet, calculated. "Make it look natural. You know how people talk. One more breakdown and no one will question it." My world split in two. People think betrayal is loud. A slammed door, a shouted insult, a gunshot. But the worst kind, the real kind, moves in silence. It hides in signatures and timestamps. It waits in shadows of legal language. It whispers through paper trails. I started with the insurance policy. It led me to a series of financial transactions I didn't recognize. Old accounts I thought were dormant. Funds transferred quietly. Then the trust. I hadn't seen the documents in years, assuming nothing had changed. But when I requested an updated copy through my lawyer, my name was no longer there. It had been removed just 3 weeks before the camping trip. 3 weeks. I stared at the date for an hour. I tried to rationalize it. A clerical error. A miscommunication. But it was no mistake. They were planning this. I hired a private investigator. His name was Daryl, ex-cop with a crooked nose and a voice that never rose above a whisper. He asked for details. I gave him everything. Names, addresses, dates, my suspicions, my nightmares. He raised an eyebrow when I mentioned the woods. "You think they meant to kill you?" "I think they meant to erase me." Daryl didn't flinch. "Then let's get messy." While he traced bank records and contact logs, I went hunting on my own. Emails, texts, social media. I searched for cracks, overlaps, anything that might prove intent. The deeper I dug, the more rot I uncovered. Then I found it, an email thread. It had been buried in a backup folder from my mother's shared drive. She once asked me to help her set up cloud syncing for family recipes. Turns out she'd synced more than she knew. The thread was between her, Jake, and someone named R. Hastings, a lawyer. The subject line chilled me. Transfer protocol in event of M. Carter's incapacitation. They had contingency plans, legal ones. If I died, everything defaulted to Jake, pre-approved, notarized. The lawyer, according to Daryl, was a distant cousin who operated out of a private firm with no website and an aversion to paper trails. Convenient. I closed the laptop and stared out the window. My reflection looked pale, almost transparent. It reminded me of a different night, a quiet one years ago, when I stayed up late baking a birthday cake for Mom. I'd spent the whole day preparing. I made her favorite, lemon poppy seed with almond frosting. I wrote her name in cursive, piped tiny blue flowers around the edges. I waited, candles lit, lights dimmed. She never came home. Jake called hours later to say they'd gone out for dinner, forgot to tell me. I ate a slice by myself, then I threw the rest away. That memory stung sharper than any document. I recorded everything after that, every phone call, every visit. I smiled, nodded, asked gentle questions that sounded innocent, then listened for the slip. Jake slipped first. He came by to check in. I offered tea. We sat on the porch. He asked if I was seeing anyone. Casual, too casual. I asked if he'd been back to the woods. His answer was too smooth. Nah, one nightmare's enough. He looked away as he said it. His foot tapped 3 times, his old tell. I clicked the recorder hidden under the table. Later, I created a fake profile, female, flirty. I followed his best friend, a guy named Travis, who never said no to attention. After a few messages and a faked mutual friend, he started talking. He mentioned Jake was acting weird, avoiding him, always with this new woman he wouldn't introduce. She's rich, he wrote. I think they're planning something big. I asked where they hang out. Sometimes up near Bramble Hill. Lot of privacy there. Bramble Hill. Close to where Jake took me camping. I checked property records. My mother had recently listed a house for sale, my house. The listing was under a shell corporation. She hadn't even told me. I was being pushed out of every corner of my life. That night, Owen called. His voice was quiet, tense. I've seen your brother here, he said, with another woman. They were out by the ridge, near where we found you. I stood completely still. What were they doing? He hesitated. They were digging. He wanted to believe I forgave him. That's how easy it was. A text, a hesitant phone call, a soft tremble in my voice. Maybe we rushed things. Maybe it wasn't what I thought. Maybe I overreacted. He bought it. Or maybe he wanted to believe I was still that same little sister who baked lemon cakes and begged to tag along. He said yes to the trip. This time I picked the location, close enough to Bramble Hill that it would feel familiar, remote enough that no one would come if I screamed. I packed carefully, 2 cameras hidden in my backpack, one in a thermos lid, a microphone sewn into my coat collar, synced to a live stream app on a backup phone hidden in the lining. Owen helped set up surveillance from a distance. No direct contact, just eyes. He didn't ask questions anymore. He knew better. Jake arrived with the same old grin, arms outstretched like we were rewinding time. You sure about this? He asked. I nodded. Let's see if we can finally put things to rest. We built a fire. I let him talk. About college, about money, about girls. I laughed when he wanted me to. I mirrored his posture. I looked down when he did. Everything a good mark should be. Then I asked the first question. Do you remember the first time we went camping? Jake smiled, eyes distant. You got stung by a bee and cried all night. I waited. You never liked me much, huh? He tilted his head. That's not true. I sipped my tea. But you knew I'd come anyway, back then, now, no matter what. His eyes flicked to the trees. You never really believed I could make it on my own. He didn't respond. So why'd you leave me? A long silence. The fire popped. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, voice low. You didn't die, he said. Disappointing, but I still have time." The smile that followed wasn't the kind people gave when they were joking. It was the smile of a man who already buried the body in his mind. I didn't move. He stood up, slow and casual, like a lion stretching before the chase. "You're not going to tell anyone. You want to, but you won't. You don't have it in you." I stood too. He walked around the fire, step by step, closing the space between us. "You want to know the truth, Mads. You were always a placeholder. Mom and Dad didn't want 2 kids. You were an accident, a mistake." I didn't flinch. "And what were you? The cleanup crew?" He laughed. "You don't have to do this," I said, my voice soft now, not afraid, strategic. "Oh, but I do." He lunged, 2 feet from me, arm extended, ready to shove. I stepped aside. A siren blared, flashlights cut through the trees, footsteps thundered. Jake froze. Officers tackled him to the ground before he could blink. They read his rights. He screamed my name, not in fear, but betrayal. "You set me up?" I stepped closer, calm. "I live-streamed everything." He writhed, cursing, spitting. The officers dragged him away. I didn't move. I didn't cry. I just exhaled, for the first time in what felt like years. By morning, the footage had gone viral. The full story unfolded across headlines and timelines, audio clips, screenshots, legal documents, even the email thread between my mother, Jake, and the shadow lawyer. It all surfaced. Daryl leaked what I couldn't. Owen confirmed what he'd seen. The family snapped. Mom said I was mentally unstable. Dad said I'd edited the audio. My uncle gave a tearful apology on local news, saying he always suspected something wasn't right. My landlord came forward with emails showing my mother requested my lease be terminated, weeks before the trip. But the court didn't care about tears. In the courtroom, I sat across from Jake, wrists cuffed, jaw clenched. He didn't speak to me. He didn't have to. I felt it, the venom under his skin, the rage bubbling behind his eyes. The prosecutor asked me to recount everything. I did, voice shaking, hands trembling. I showed the footage, the emails, the paper trail, the policy. Jake's lawyer tried to claim it was a prank gone wrong. "He never intended harm," she said. "It was an elaborate, misguided test of character." The jury didn't buy it. In the final moments before he was let out, Jake looked at me and smiled, again, like he had a secret left. "You still don't know the full story, do you?" Jake was sentenced to 18 years. No parole for the first 12. The judge didn't blink when the verdict was read. Neither did I. I sat in the front row, hands folded in my lap, watching the bailiff guide him away like an overgrown child who finally got caught. My mother avoided eye contact the entire trial. She didn't speak when the ruling came down. Her lawyers negotiated a civil settlement, undisclosed to the public, but I knew the numbers. It wasn't just about the money, it was acknowledgement. It was guilt with a signature. She transferred the house back to me, released my inheritance, and withdrew from every public charity board she once sat on. I didn't attend the settlement meeting. My lawyer handled it. I didn't want to see her. Not because I hated her, because if I looked into her eyes, I might see someone I used to love. Days after the verdict, my attorney handed me a sealed envelope. Inside was a letter and a copy of the original trust amendment, the one I'd found in the email chain. But this version had a signature I hadn't seen before, Robert Hastings, and a note. "Robert isn't just some shady lawyer," my attorney said. "He's your uncle." The name hit like cold water. I remembered him faintly, quiet, kind, always on the edge of family photos. He used to sneak me candy when Mom wasn't looking. He vanished from my life when I was 10. They said he moved abroad. Turns out he'd been pushed out. He tried to report abuse when you were little, my attorney added. They threatened him, said he was unstable. They took custody away from his sister, your aunt. It broke him. He never stopped watching, though. I called the number at the bottom of the note. A woman answered. I asked for Robert. She hesitated, then transferred me. His voice was older, slower, but still warm. I wanted to keep you safe, he said. I couldn't be near, so I asked someone to keep an eye on you. Owen. Yes. It had all been connected. The ranger in the woods, the one who found me, who stayed just close enough. He wasn't just a good man, he was chosen. I wish I'd done more, Robert whispered. You did enough, I replied, and I meant it. For the first time in years, I felt like I belonged to someone who wanted me safe, not someone who wanted me silent. The news moved on. The headlines faded. Jake became a cautionary tale. My mother withdrew from society. The cameras disappeared. But justice doesn't need volume to echo. Sometimes it's loudest in the quiet. I started a podcast called Surviving Wolves. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. Listeners knew the signs: gaslighting, inheritance manipulation, emotional sabotage disguised as love. My inbox flooded with stories, women, men, children now grown, writing things they never dared say aloud. Each episode, I told a piece of my truth, not just the survival, the process, the breaking, the rebuilding, the parts that made me want to give up, and the parts that reminded me why I didn't. I never claimed to be healed, just free. A month after the final court appearance, I drove out to the clearing, the place where Jake left me, where the note sat, where I thought I would die. This time it was daylight. Birds chirped, wind rustled the trees. The place looked smaller somehow, less like a cage, more like a chapter. I stood in the same spot, closed my eyes, breathed deep. No tears came, no rage, just stillness. I left a small stone on the stump where Jake once sat, not a tribute, a marker, proof that I came back, and I didn't need anyone to carry me out. That night, I returned home, made tea, and opened my laptop to edit the next episode. As the file rendered, my phone buzzed. Blocked number, one message. You didn't meet all the wolves yet. The town I chose was quiet, not empty, just slow. The kind of place where people still wave from porches and leave doors unlocked. It had no ties to my past, no Carter relatives, no whispers, no shadows trailing behind my name. Just pine trees, winding roads, and a sense of space that felt like oxygen. I rented a small cabin near the edge of the woods, ironic maybe, but to me, forests had never been the enemy. The people who left me in them were. It started small. A few locals asked about the podcast. A few more wanted to learn how to hike safely, how to track paths, start fires, protect themselves. I offered to teach. One weekend class turned into a regular series. Parents brought teenagers, survivors brought journals. A woman showed up with a scar running down her spine and told me, I need to learn how to stay alive around people like my sister. We called it survival from within. I didn't teach them how to fight. I taught them how to listen, to themselves, to instincts, to silence that doesn't feel right. I taught them about boundaries, not the kind you draw in sand, but the kind you build like fences with reinforced steel and warning signs that read, You may not cross here, and I won't explain why. I stopped calling myself a survivor. That word still felt like someone else had the power. I was done surviving. I was building. Therapy helped. So did the solitude. I still had bad nights, dreams where I was running through trees, where footsteps followed but never revealed who they belonged to. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, heart galloping, staring at shadows that didn't move. But they passed, and when they didn't, I had something else to ground me. Two somethings. Their names were Luna and Ash. Rescue wolves, not pets, not domesticated, but bonded. They'd been taken in young, saved from an illegal breeder. They couldn't be released into the wild anymore, too used to humans to survive. But they weren't tame either. I wasn't looking for them. But when the Wildlife Center offered them to me, after someone heard my story and thought maybe it was meant to be, I didn't hesitate. The first time Luna looked at me, she didn't blink, just stared, eyes the color of winter sky. She didn't wag her tail, she didn't bark, she didn't come close, she watched. So did Ash, quieter, darker, slower to trust. I knew that feeling. Over weeks, they settled in. They didn't sleep inside, they didn't need to. They circled the cabin like guardians, lay beneath the porch at night, and paced beside me when I walked the trails. People kept their distance, not out of fear but respect. Wolves didn't need to growl to be understood. One morning, I sat with my laptop, a mug of coffee beside me, a blank document open on the screen. The cursor blinked like a challenge. I'd been avoiding it for months. Everyone asked me when the book was coming. I'd say, soon. What I meant was, I'm not ready to go back there. But I was. I just didn't need to bleed on every page anymore. I could write from a place of knowing, of choosing. The title came first. Among Wolves. The first line came like a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. My family tried to feed me to the wild, but I became wilder than they imagined. I didn't cry when I typed it. I smiled. I wrote until dusk. Luna howled once from somewhere behind the trees. Ash padded by, brushed against my leg, then disappeared again. The house was quiet except for keys tapping, breath steady, heart full. Months passed, seasons shifted. The podcast kept growing, the classes expanded. I was invited to speak on panels. People flew in just to walk the woods with me. Not because I was famous, because they saw something in my eyes that they needed to find in themselves. And eventually, I let someone in. Not romantically, not yet, but friendship. Real, unforced, safe. One afternoon, a documentary crew asked to film me for a feature on women who rebuilt themselves. I said yes on one condition. You don't get to dramatize me. I'm not a victim who found power. I was always powerful. They just tried to bury it. They followed me through the woods, down the trails I marked, around the clearing where Luna and Ash liked to rest. At the end of the day, they filmed a final shot. Me sitting on the cabin steps, looking into the trees, the wolves at my side. No voiceover, no music, just quiet. The camera zoomed in slowly. My face, not smiling, not crying, calm, clear and free.